All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr, previewing Kentucky versus Ohio State. SEC basketball this weekend takes place on Saturday at Madison Square Garden. Max, the Cats, as we know, have had quite a start to the season, sitting here as one of many double-digit win teams in the SEC. 10-1 on the season right now, coming off that win last weekend against Louisville. Meanwhile, for Ohio State, they are at 7-4 on the year. Last weekend, lost by 38 to Auburn. They bounced back with a 22-point win over Valpo on Tuesday. But when you look at this matchup, and I always ask you your initial thoughts, I think the first thing, and I'm just going to guess it without knowing it, has got to be who is actually going to play for Ohio State in this one. Because, man, they are a team that is down several players, at least the way it looks right now. We don't know exactly what their availability could be in this game, but it's not the most ideal scenario, it seems, for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, so a little bit of a question mark here for the Ohio State lineup. Not going to have Michi Johnson. Know a lot about him last year at Carolina. Thoughts are with Michi. I think he's going through a tough personal family time right now. Michi's not going to be available. Quez Glover, Colin White, the freshman. Not expecting them. Diebler said that they're recovering from ankle injuries. However, there's no timetable on their return yet. Even if we do get them, Blake, I don't know how productive they will be given they've been out for a few weeks now. And then probably the most important one that we don't know yet, Aaron Bradshaw, the big man. Diebler said that right now it's day to day. They're working on his game conditioning. So if he's ready, I guess he'll play. If he's not, he won't. We don't know. I don't even think Diebler knows. So right now, Blake, KenPom has this projected as an 82-78 victory for Kentucky. But I would imagine with the public knowing about all of the lineup, configuration for Ohio State, I would be very surprised if we see a spread under, at the projection of 4. I would be very surprised if it's that short.
Well, and just as a note, so you guys know, we are recording this on Thursday morning, a little earlier than we usually do. Max is traveling this weekend, just kind of about to head into the holiday week next week, so we're just trying to get ahead a little bit. So if you're wondering, you may know who's playing and who's not playing.
Yeah.
Basically, if you're watching this on Friday, if you're watching this on Saturday before the games. But as of right now, this is what we have to go on. And we know, at least from the Kentucky standpoint, they got Lamont Butler back in a big way against Louisville.
Yep.
And just an unbelievable performance. We know Kirk Risa is still out. Not sure Mark Pope's 10-day timeline, I think it was, Max. I don't know if that's going to hold in this one, but probably not. But as we look at this game, though, I mean, I know initially if you're a Kentucky fan, and we always like to have fun at Southeastern 16 with the transitive property of, how did you do against other teams, right, that the SEC opponents have played? Well, like we said, Auburn beat Ohio State by 38 last weekend. You had Texas A&M back in mid-November beat Ohio State by 14 in College Station. Of course, Ohio State did beat Texas to open the season 80-72. Elsewhere, the 4 losses for the Buckeyes: Texas A&M, Auburn, as we mentioned, overtime loss to Pitt, also lost by 24 at Maryland. I think, for me, Max, one of the things I brought up when we talked about that game last weekend against Auburn, obviously just how good Auburn's been to this point, but it was also when you looked at it and was like, well, outside of that first game, Ohio State's not exactly played great away from home. And this is one of those where you're going to Madison Square Garden. There's going to be a lot of Kentucky fans there. We know that. There will be Ohio State fans there too, but a lot of Kentucky fans after a great start. That's one of the things too, just with the lineup unknowns as well. It just seems to be a team that 40.6% on the year 3-point shooting, we know. But if you look at some of those splits, Max, right? We said it, like Maryland, 4 of 19, Texas A&M, 8 of 30, 6 of 16 against Auburn. So I'm curious to see how all that plays out here in this kind of environment at MSG.
Yeah, one thing that we can kind of narrow in on with all these uncertains are who is going to play for Ohio State. You're going to get a ton of Bruce Thornton, a ton of John Mobley. John Mobley's not being talked enough on a national scale. He is one of the best shooters in the nation, regardless of what year you are. And then you're going to have a ton of Micah Parrish. Been there, done that. Played a ton of basketball. Final Four with the championship game with San Diego State. Devin Royal, the sophomore, the breakout, the undersized four. So they're going to have a lot of their good guys still, right? You're going to get a lot of that. But where I think Kentucky can, over the course of the game, how they come out after halftime adjustments over the course of the game, I think the depth of Kentucky is going to be a major factor in here. What if, I think foul trouble, I hate banking on foul trouble in a preview, but with Ohio State's front court, if there's no Bradshaw, if a guy like Owe is super aggressive, or Amari Williams, he's really good at drawing fouls. If Sean Stewart gets in foul trouble, oh boy, Ohio State's real thin there. So I think the depth of Kentucky, Blake, major advantage for the Cats here.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot this season, just the overall options that Mark Pope has. And, I mean, we mentioned it, right? Like, used last weekend as a great example of just Lamont Butler not knowing if he's going to play, comes in and plays and goes off for 33 points. Like, how many of these guys can do that for Kentucky? And we know, like, Kobe Bryant could get hot at any time, like Jackson Robinson, Andrew Carr, like, just keep going down the line, right? And so I do think that's something that, for this Kentucky team that should be a strength and an advantage in this kind of game, like we mentioned, just given some of the unknowns with the roster for Ohio State as we record this on Thursday. But if you want to bet on this game, and Max gave you all the numbers as to what this could be, which could swing, maybe, depending on injury news and that kind of stuff. But if you want to bet on the Cats or the Buckeyes in this one, you can do it at our friends at BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. The earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, the UFC. It's all there. Head to BetOnline today, and don't forget, use that promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here, as Barry is very excited, as we can tell, about getting his bets in with our friends at BetOnline. Max.
Okay, so I wanted to check this. So Torvik has it at 6.5, the line. Ken Palm's got it at 4. I think I'm leaning more towards Torvik, 6.5, 7, 8.5, something out there, multiple possessions, I think is what you'll get. And I think that'll be a bit more accurate than a tight spread here. One more angle that I was looking at, Blake. Oh, did you have something you were gonna?
No, go ahead. I'll add something after you finish.
Well, one more angle that I was looking at is the defense in the guards of Kentucky. You have a guy like John Mobley for Ohio State who's been unbelievable from the perimeter. I'm not exaggerating that. I mean, high volume, shooting north of 50%. Extremely good shooter. What does that look like with Lamont Butler on him? What does that look like with Otega Owe on him? Now, with these injuries, no Quez Glover, no Colin White, no Michi Johnson, if one of those shooters is taken out of the equation, right? One of the Thornton, Parrish, Mobley, Mahaffey, if one of those guys is taken out of the equation, I feel like Kentucky's going to be able to sag off a little bit, clog up those lanes, and you might really be able to see this defense start to work. Just take away one of those guards defensively, whether it's Owe, Butler, whoever's on them, major factor here.
Well, and look, Ohio State's defensive numbers, too, I think are interesting. Like, they're top 25 in the country in three-point field goal percentage defense. We brought that up last week in the Auburn game.
Yeah.
But Auburn went, I think, 13 of 30 for 43%. And if you look at how that number's baked in a little bit, which you could also play this game, right, with Kentucky on the perhaps shooting side too. But, some of that's going to come off the heels of a 3 for 22 performance for Youngstown State, a 3 for 27 performance for Evansville, a 4 of 20 performance for Campbell, right? So some of those numbers, Valpo went 5 of 24. So Kentucky, a different beast here, and we always laugh about Mark Pope. He's like, we got to get to that magic number of attempts, and I think that's something where certainly they'll be trying to do that here in this one. And even though, Kentucky, and it's funny because we're like, Kentucky, are they going to be able to shoot the three well enough? Like, are they, been a little disappointing there, right? They're still shooting 37% from three. It's just because we had so much high expectations of they may be the best in the country at this, but I think that's something too where if you're looking at Ohio State maybe in catch-up mode here. We said they're going to take some threes. We know that. But we'll get into picks, Max. I just think this is one where it's like, man, based on recent play and what we've seen, I don't know about this one.
Yeah. One last piece I wanted to bring up was it might be, and now I don't want to doubt him at all, but it might be a low offensive output from Andrew Carr because he's going to be busy all night boxing out Devin Royal, trying to keep him off the glass. He's one of the best rebounders in the nation. Very, very high usage rate right now. Very tough, 6'6", 220, tough 4-man. So Carr's going to have his hands full. Might be spending a little bit more of his energy doing stuff other than scoring, but it's a small thing about Royal. When you get into picks for this game, anytime that it feels like it's extremely, extremely, extremely obvious that a team is going to win, I tend to get scared. Thinking Florida, North Carolina, right? It's so obvious that North Carolina's down and Florida's due. Up by like 15, 20, and then things start, it starts getting weird and you're like, what is going on? I get a little, anytime it's like really obvious that a team has the advantage, I get a little scared. I can't find it here with Ohio State. I think they're too short-manned. They don't have the front court depth. Could they have an incredible night from three? Yes, they've got the shooters, but it's going to take like those 5 guys, those 5 starters for Ohio State are going to have to play lights out for a full 40 minutes. Doable? Yes. Okay. These are good players, but I don't think they got the depth, Blake. I'm going Kentucky.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's just with a team like Ohio State, they're going to shoot some threes, and that always should concern you a little bit because if they just go hot, anything can happen. I think with Kentucky, they've also got guys who can shoot the ball. And, I think Kentucky playing catch up, we've seen them do that before, right? And come back and win games. So I feel more confident Kentucky playing catch up than I would other teams in this scenario if, again, Ohio State just simply gets hot. And so, yeah, for me, I mean, we keep saying it, like Kentucky does a great job taking care of the ball. They're just – Mark Pope has had them ready to play. Like you can say, sure, there have been some ugly performances this year, but they're always game plan-wise in a really good spot. I think they'll have a great game plan against this team, with or without Aaron Bradshaw, with or without, whoever else could be in the rotation or not here for Ohio State. So – I like Kentucky too. Don't worry, Kentucky fans. As we said, we've proven before the Southeastern 16 kiss of death does not apply if it's not all 3 of us. Chris is not on this video, so I'm going to pick the Cats as well. But you did say something, and I told you this before we talked about, like, this is the kind of game that does scare you a little bit because you are looking at how bad Auburn beat Ohio State last weekend and just thinking, okay, we're just as good as Auburn. We're going to go out and beat them by 40. It sometimes doesn't work that way. But we'll see. It may just be too much for Ohio State just from a numbers perspective. So we'll see.
I think the 3-point variance, games like where that can really, it can really come into play where teams are shooting a lot of threes. You never know. I mean, if Ohio State comes out, shoots 6 of 9 from 3 at halftime, they're going to be in this ball game 100%. So very excited.
Max always knows when he sees that opening line, he knows whether to be concerned or be excited. So he'll probably talk about it on Twitter. Follow him there at Max Barr CBB. He'll probably tell you what he's thinking when that line comes out. But again, guys, we'll have you covered here. Reaction. We'll be doing reaction on Saturday as usual live here at Southeastern 16. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button on your way out. Check out all of our other stuff here on the channel. You can join the It Just Means More membership tier here too. Hit that join button. We got some members-only content coming. If you're a Kentucky fan, we'll have some of that stuff. Watch-alongs during the season as well. So we appreciate your support of our SEC basketball coverage and the channel. So thanks as always for watching, and we'll talk to you again here soon at Southeastern 16.